Okay. Manjari. Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another session of Samyukta Poetry. And today we have with us a very interesting work that draws from various diversities and yet experiences the same thing. We have people from across India, people from across the ocean, people speaking different languages, different dialects, and yet, and who articulate different politics. Yet they have come to the pages of this book to discuss, or maybe to confess, or to interrogate the sometimes obvious, the sometimes elusive, niggling feeling, problem, call it what you may, called loneliness. And among us, who hasn't experienced loneliness? But at the same time, to be able to articulate it, it's something exquisite, because often we've had movies romanticize it, we have had songs written in praise of loneliness, but to actually bring it to the pages of a book, to talk about it from all of these diverse angles, and at a time when this problem of loneliness has become so endemic, particularly during and after the pandemic, then these voices that are articulating it, these stalwart voices, they become very important. They have something very urgent to say. So, under the circumstances, I would like to welcome you to the launch of Writing from the Solitary. If everybody could hold their copies of the book up. We've had some wonderful writers who have contributed to this anthology. If I read the list of contributors, it sounds like the who's who of Indian writing in English at this point of time. So we'll come to that first. But before we do that, I would like to set the tone for the evening with a reading from Srilata K. So, ma'am, please.
Thank you. This poem is on page 108. There never was a raft. The day I left, my leaving started to grow, a river in spate drowning all that had withered in those parched years, and all that had blossomed despite. Soon, things various sunk to the riverbed, that rusty purple hero Miss India gold, that desk drawer filled with the anticipation of pencils, that spot of sun by the window which had felt like love, students like birds, their chatter like bird chirp, an out of print edition of Pride and Prejudice, my belonging like a faded dress. Even you, who say to me, come, let's gather the scatter, nothing is lost, there has to be a raft. Even you know there is no gathering. What scatters only scatters further. All is lost, it really is. There never was a raft that brought anyone home.
Thank you very much, Srilata ma'am. And if I would ask the editors, Priyanka Sarkar and Semeen Ali, to join in, you know, could you please tell us the impetus behind this book? And by the way, Srilata ma'am, your reason for contributing to this anthology and your reason for choice of this particular work. It would be nice to know. So putting the three of you in this discussion.
Right. I think I've always sort of treaded that line, that difficult line between solitude and loneliness. As a writer, as an only child, as also, I think somebody who feels like who's always felt like a bit of an outlier socially in many many contexts. Someone who sometimes feels like they're late to the game or are not part of the game sometimes. And I think there's always been that thread in a lot of my poems. And slowly now looking back, and I think when Priyanka and Semeen reached out and I said, yeah, actually, I do have poems on the topic, and I enjoy solitude. I enjoy my time, but there are these moments when it gets into that sphere of loneliness.
So now the editors. How exactly did you tap into this?
I mean, I I would agree 100% with whatever Shweta just said, because I mean, as an only child, I'm also an only child, and yeah, so so is some is as a semi. So I think I mean, it's just a very I would say being one, and yeah, I mean, you enjoy, and like she said, you both revel in it, you enjoy it, but there are times you just wish there were limits to it, and when it becomes a bit much. So, so, and I think again, like you said, the pandemic was a moment which really happened, and this we're all just two different bubbles or different this uh, for a family member at that time. So you had to record even more cut off. I mean, because you had to take certain precautions. So yeah, it was. I mean, that's when it intensified, and I think once things started opening up, I met Semeen, and I think something late. I mean, we were both, we were helping uh, with the Indian Literature Journal of Sarkar at that point of time, and so yeah, I just asked her one night. I think she was on her way. I mean, this was evening, and she was leaving for the day, and I mean, asked the question. You want to? I mean, I'm thinking of doing an anthology, and I think there was like she was shocked for a minute, and but she recovered quite fast. Yeah, let's do this. So that was it.
Uh, I think when we sat down to think about how this book will, be created, who we should invite, and what the reason that we thought of was that basically loneliness has always been looked with this lens of either self-help or in a way where it's looked at through a medical lens,
Mm.
but not with this sense that we wanted to bring in, which is we wanted writers and poets to come together, sit with this feeling. It's sort of a shared language that we wanted to explore, where it becomes sort of a conversation in the book. So if there's one piece, it's talking to another piece. And that's how we just wanted it to be like a flow of conversation where the reader doesn't feel as if the reader is alone in this experience, that it's a shared experience. So this was basically what we thought of when we created this.
And it's a multifaceted book, isn't it? I mean, it has prose, it has poetry, it has microfiction. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how did you decide to, make it that kind of a mix of a book?
I think we didn't want any genre to feel lonely, so
Yeah. Yes.
them all in.
Yes.
Okay.
I think, yeah, I mean, I yeah, I think we wanted to explore it in every facet and every
Hmm.
yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
I mean, since we were focusing on literature,
Hmm.
yes, we want and writing and writers. So I think in that sense, we just wanted to have everything and explore it from every angle possible.
Now that you mentioned that, you didn't want any genre to feel lonely. I suddenly had this question, and I'm opening it to all the participants as well. You can answer if you want to. Which genre did you think A felt the loneliest, and B was the best at expressing loneliness?
I leave it to the contributors to answer.
I don't know if there's a best in this. Like each genre has its own way of expressing loneliness, and I think it's a very personal kind of thing. Whatever genre you may be writing in, you can express yourself in that. And I mean, if you are a fiction writer, you cannot suddenly become a poet. You express yourself in the genre that you have been used to writing in, and the idea is to be able to express this feeling.
So, on that note, Sarah, ma'am, can we ask you to read from your piece if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. Well, I have a very short story in this, so I'll read one page of that, which is, I hope it's the 1 minute that everyone is supposed to read
आपका
for.
स्लो चल रहा है ये
वो
इंटरनेट
किताब ला दीजिएगा मुझे वहां
पहले ये स्टार्ट तो करिए लास्ट में
Uh, shall I read?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
okay. So my story is called Love, and it starts like this. The door opens, but no one comes in. Yet the sound of a latch being lifted had surely reached my ears. No matter what time of night you wake, there's always the sound of a door opening, but no one comes in. Perhaps the door opens somewhere else then, in quite another place. There is no breeze, but the leaves rustle. The chirruping of crickets. It's an unseen orchestra, a spring of joy welling out of the barren heart of the earth. The moonlight gleams like a golden river. It drowns the crooked branches of the frangipani. No, it's not a river at all, but a snake with its mouth wide open in a grin. Look, it swallowed the tree. No, that's not a snake. It's light, waves of shimmering light. There are coins made of light that the moon has placed on the people, one golden coin on each leaf, thousands of coins that fill the night with their clinking, a tinkling echo that stretches to the end of the world, to the ends of the earth, to the end of time, to the end of time, or to its beginning. The door opens, but no one enters. No, you won't come through this door again. You've gone. But there's this house you left behind. Solitude, a blue solitude, drips from the silent walls. The loneliness is deep, not a soul to be seen for miles. And the people stand tall, heaving, sighing, whispering, Calm, calm, calm. The leaves are restless, they never stop rustling. And this murmuring, this calling out, from you to me, from me to you, it returns and it keeps returning, wave upon wave, falling and rising again in the endless ocean of our desire, shifting and merging one into the other till our separateness is erased. Thank you.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. Thank you. So, I would like to bring back our editors. It's like a very busy evening for you today. I was wondering, with regard to, and yes, Kage and Ramsar as well. I was wondering how lonely an activity is translation.
I think
Well, I don't think much about it. I guess it is structurally quite lonely, it suits me, I guess.
Yeah. And the editors who are translators themselves, your points of
Priyanka,
view?
Why don't you go first?
I think you should.
पहले आप नहीं तो पहले आप
वही होता uh, so I mean for me, I mean I think all kind of writing is lonely at the end of the day, and translation. Okay. And yeah, I mean sometimes it's lonely, sometimes you wish it was lonelier, sometimes you wish there was someone you could reach out to get some feedback or something. So, but again, like I think in some, I mean, tools and yeah, and sometimes you just with the book and it's just you and the book and the text. It's,
I think we're not organized to form communities of translators. Not yet, but we're getting there. But throughout my career, it has not been that easy to to find other translators and get on with them and so on. There's no institutional base for that kind of community building.
I believe there's something called the AL Alta. I mean, Mani Rao had told me about it. ALTA. I'm not a part of it, but I think now there are some communities that are coming up.
Okay.
Or
Yeah, there
the
are communities now. Yeah.
or the other
But when
translators
I
on the
started
panel.
out in the 90s, there was nothing.
And yeah, I mean, it was also, yeah, I mean, it was a different time for translation.
Yeah, right.
So if the other translators on the panel would also like to just talk about the idea, that would be great.
Sampurna? Mars? I think we have a lot of translators here.
Yeah. And actually, Pooja has just joined us.
Okay.
So it'll be a bit out of context for her. So, hi, Pooja, welcome, and nice to have you here. We were just talking
Thank you.
about the loneliness of the translator and the possible lack of a sense of community feeling that the translators sometimes have. So, we were just bringing the discussion round to it in the context of the book because there are such lovely translations there, and many of you are also translators. So, that way.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you very much for that. And for bringing me up to speed. I'm sorry I'm late. I was running a little late. Meetings got over late. So we're very happy to be here and to meet all of you.
So anybody?
Yeah, maybe I'll just, come in on this. I've never thought of uh, the loneliness of the translator, though I should have, because it's a bit like the loneliness of the long distance runner, isn't it? But I think what prevents, and I've never, it's very interesting to have that thought planted in my head. I think the reason why it's never felt lonely is because I'm always with another person, the person whose work I'm translating, the world of that person. So, and perhaps I've been infinitely blessed because because of the translation workshops, the poetry translation workshops, etc., that I've been part of. It's more a community of poets who happen to translate each other, and so it's more like we are just doing this thing because we want the borders between our languages, the opacities between our languages to slide away so that access, that door that Sarah was talking about, the door is opening, and it'll be so sad if nobody walks in through that door. So I think that's what it's been like for me, but perhaps it's been different for other people.
Sarah, would you like to weigh in? Sarah?
I don't know because I think all writing, all translation is by nature a lonely sort of thing because when you're working, you don't want people around and you are just by yourself in that space between you and the text. So you are sort of not lonely because of the text that you're working on. So that text itself, I think, is a sort of solution to the loneliness. And the community of translators only comes later, once it's all been done. Then you look around for other people who may have been going through the same problems and the same joys that you have been, subjected to. So I think it's just that's the nature of the job. I mean, if you're a translator or a writer, you're going to be lonely. And I think solitude is very essential for both writers and translators. It's that space where you can be with yourself, with the work engaging. You don't want people around at that point. So I don't know if other people have had a different experience, but I think that's how it's been for me, that I value my solitude. I want to carve out that space from all the noise and where I can be with myself.
Mars?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Sampurna and perhaps what Sarah was also saying, but I think all writing, but even more so translation, springs from a need for dialogue. the very act, the very choice to decide to translate is to have a dialogue with the author. For me, it was my first translation, sort of Ghalib, who's long dead. But you are having that dialogue with another author, past or present. Um, and then you're trying to further that dialogue and throw it out into the world where others may speak through it in another language. With my more recent experience with contemporary authors and translating their work, the dialogue has been, in fact, much more lived in an everyday sense. I've discussed important issues in the translation, in the text themselves. I have a translated novel that's forthcoming in the summer. The translation has been a far more collaborative act. We have together edited the novel a bit too, I suppose, and the author has made some additions. There's been some sections that have been dropped. So there is much more of a at least dialogue, definitely. So it's not a large community; it's a community of two here at this stage, I suppose. But there is then the editor, and then there is the wider world. But I think the essential need to translate, and also sometimes other writing. I'm in this anthology as a short story writer. I write poetry. While I write in solitude, a lot of that also springs uh, from dialogue from with other texts. There is great intertextuality. As a poet, I'm responding. A lot of my poems are actually, I would say, response poems. Sometimes to a single poem, sometimes to many poems, and as well as, of course, interpersonal experience. So it is trying to capture that. Of course, a lot of that happens in solitude, but it is trying to create dialogue from that space of solitude.
I see. And can we have you read from your piece and maybe provide a bit of context as well as you're reading it?
Oh, thank you. You're asking me, right?
Yes, Max, of course.
My piece here is not a translation. I mean, it is as much a translation as all writing is a translation of experience and reading. So in that it is there. It is a short story. It is, I suppose, might have been evident to those who have read it and who know a little bit about me. It's somewhat semi-autobiographical. It's called A Game of Tennis. And yeah, so I'll read, I'd like to read just a very short opening two paragraphs. I don't want to read for too long or read too much. I'm not sure what else I want to say about the story. I suppose for those who've read it, have read it, and I'd love to hear what they think about it. And for those who haven't, I'd urge you to read it. I'll read now. A Game of Tennis. I was back in my old Delhi home. It was just that the cellar had grown into a huge dungeon, and I seemed to be staring into a strange abyss at the end of the extra long staircase. I was not sure what it was that loomed at me out of it, but it certainly wasn't good. Repulsed and fearful, as I began to climb my way back up, water started to flow from the walls. Dark, dirty water. It was filling up the dungeon, not bucket loads, but truckloads, teeming, voluminous, flowing from the ceiling, from the walls, climbing up through the floor, flowing down the stairs. It was cold and slimy. I began to run and make my way out of my own house. No bucket was going to be enough to throw this water out. A fire would have been easier to douse, but this was water. Soon the very brick and mortar of the old Haveli began to dissolve and flow with it. There was nothing to be done. I was drenched as I woke up. The mobile phone at my bedside told me it was 6:12 a.m., 9th November 2019. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That pretty much, points to a certain state of mind So, on that note, may I ask Anil Menon to please step in and read from his segment and tell us one thing. Did you write this piece for the anthology, or you had it and the anthology came along?
This was half done. This was a story that was half done, and it wasn't written towards any particular aim in mind. And when Priyanka asked me, Priyanka and Semeen had sent me that email, I was immediately intrigued. I could see that this story might be a fit. And so I went ahead and completed it. So that's how it came about. It's a short story, but I found it rather unusually difficult as compared to some of the other stories I had written in finishing it. And I think it's partly because loneliness, unlike the other emotions, it's a whole complex of emotions, and it's very difficult to pin it down. And I wasn't sure whether it is actually content or is a container, whether it's cause of many other emotions or whether it's actually the effect of the things that a person has done. And I'm usually influenced by Buddhist ideas on emotions. And not that I'm a Buddhist, but I like the way they think about it. And it is often, it is in Buddhism, it seems to me that it is positioned as one of the consequences of attachment, the dukkha that arises from attachment, one of the forms it takes. So the story was kind of talking about a person who is not at home with themselves and who is attached to perhaps uh, to ideas and memories that is simply causing them dukkha, that they can't forgive themselves. So ultimately, it became a story about what caused the loneliness rather than uh, what the loneliness was leading to. So that's how I saw the story. So I'll read one page. It's on page 149, and it's called The Kingdom. And Semeen, before I start, Semeen and Priyanka, thank you for inviting me to contribute to the anthology. I know how hard these things are. Okay, here we go. Sometimes, in the more habitual moments of the day, missing Padma, grading exams, watching the commute stations slip by, lying in bed unable to sleep, or sipping my cup of unsweetened coffee, I'm led to contemplate the other lives I might have had. I hadn't always been a professor at IIT Mumbai. Once I had been other things, was meant to be other things, should have taken the road not taken, should have turned left instead of right, and who is to say where the other chap might have gone? In these moments, I hear my dead wife's Tamil words as an envoy of worry and forgiveness. Be at peace. I was happy enough. Be at peace. What she is saying, of course, why do you dwell so on the past? I do and I don't. What I cannot do is to dwell in the present. The effect of such displacement in time was noted by Kierkegaard. In Either Or, he has a chapter where his alter ego, A, addresses the Simpranakranomoi, a society of the living dead, on the personality of the unhappiest. Kierkegaard does not clarify whether A's audience of zombies included women, but doubtless the audience must have had women, unloved women with withered breasts, betrayed women, women stuffed with dead children. A's lecture can be compressed into one line. Forgiveness is giving up all hope for a better past, and the future offers no scope for forgiveness. So I'll stop here before going on. Yeah.
Thank you. I found that story to be quite, captivating. The whole thing about the chemistry and, well, Kierkegaard coming in. Was that a very conscious choice,
Yes.
serving Kierkegaard?
Yeah, it's a lovely essay on the unhappiest man. It comes in the middle of one of his complex, Either Or, his complex works. And he was one of those guys who wrote fiction and non-fiction and stuffed them in the same book. And in this book, he considers who is the unhappiest person you can imagine, who is conceivably the unhappiest person. And essentially, Kierkegaard argues, gives a Buddhist answer where he says, is a person who is not living in the present. He's either hoping for something that has already happened, and or he's anticipating a future that will never come. And that essay was influential. I think David Lodge, in his book Therapy, also uses it as the central the argument for that book. Is that the David Lodge's character is obsessed with Kierkegaard, and especially this particular work. So yeah, it was central to the story. So.
Thank you very much. May I now ask Annie Zaidi, to please read from her pages, as well as, talk to us about her choice of this particular piece of fiction that she has written. I mean, I found the delicate bond that you have presented, that comes into its own at the very end of the story. I found it very touching, and I kept reading that. So, over to you.
I'll just read a couple of paragraphs from the beginning of the story. The story is called Nivi's Knees.
You could give us
We thought,
page number.
yeah, 24.
Yeah.
Page 24.
Thank you.
We thought it was hypochondria, Nurse Baby Kutti and I. We pored over her reports the first few months, listening carefully as she explained in detail her medical history of the last 22 years. She had kept every prescription from every doctor she had visited across 6 neighborhoods in the city where she had lived all of her adult life. On her 6th visit, Baby Kutti let out an audible phew before Nivi had quite left this consulting room and I had to frown in disapproval. On her 7th visit, Baby suggested that Nivi derives a grim satisfaction from all these medical appointments, and I allowed myself a rueful smile. Baby was emboldened to address Nivi as Auntie and to tell her that she was strong as a horse, nothing wrong with her. Nivi's mouth was drawn into a tight, mirthless smile as she said, Mare. The female is a mare, but I am not one. Perhaps you'd allow the doctor to make the diagnosis? Had I been younger, I would have risked a joke about the frequency of her visits, but there was something about Nivi's watery grey eyes that reminded me of an injured wildcat. Each time, I would consider telling her that she was perfectly fine. Then I'd lose my nerve. I would extend a hand and she would put out her left arm. I'd check her blood pressure, feel her abdomen for knots, prescribe multivitamins and calcium and as many non-invasive tests as I could think of. By her 10th visit, Baby Kutti and I had begun to talk about Nivi during our lunch break. I'll just stop. Yeah. Just a short reading. It's from the beginning. It kind of tells you what the story is about. It's sort of this woman who visits doctors a lot and has latched on to this particular doctor whom she visits repeatedly, even though there's nothing wrong with her. Yeah, that's the story basically. There are these 3 characters, the doctor, the nurse, and this patient, Nivi.
And this hypochondria, it's also a means of dealing with loneliness, is it not, to crave that sense of human contact?
Yeah, in my story, I mean, my approach to Nivi's character is essentially when Priyanka and Semeen reached out asking for a story on loneliness, I began to think a lot of elderly, or if not quite elderly, lots of people who are approaching old age, say in their 50s and 60s. And I've lived most of my adult life in cities like Bombay and Delhi. And I find there are a lot of lonely people actually. And in India, we also have these assumptions about our society, and we like to compare ourselves favorably to the West, and we say things like that, oh, but people in the West are so lonely, and people in India always have their families around. And that's not really true. Every third or fourth household that I look at, I see a lot of old, lonely people. Sometimes, even when their families live with them, they are deeply lonely. But increasingly, what's happening is that children live in other cities and parents have no one to talk to, or they have no children. Maybe they're never married. So I consciously created Nivi as a slightly mysterious character. Like the part that I've just read, the next sentence is when they talk about Nivi, they think, what's her name? Is it Nivedita? Is it Navya? Because she won't even tell them her full name. She just goes by Nivi. Um, is she married? Is she not? And that's not what the story is about. That's not the point of it. Maybe she is. But then by the end of it, we also confront the doctor's loneliness and the nurse's loneliness. So that's what I wanted to write about.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to bring in the editors to ask a question. When did you, finally feel that, okay, now this anthology is complete? Okay, this is it. We can't hear you, Priyanka.
We can't hear you, Priyanka.
Oh, I mean, okay, I'm not on mute.
Now we can hear you.
Now we can hear you.
I probably put it on mute because of a train passing. I live right next to railway tracks. When did we feel it was complete? I don't think
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we still think we've done more. So
yeah.
I don't think. Maybe like part two. The sequel. Wait for the sequel now.
But there's one thing that I just wanted to share, because this was a question that was also asked to us in an interview, that how did we feel while we were compiling all these writings, all these voices. And I think both of us felt it was very emotionally heavy for us when we sat down to read all of them together. But at the same time, it was also a privilege in a way that people were entrusting us with their writings, with their ideas, because it is not easy to write on this theme, without tapping into one's interiority. So in that sense, it was a privilege, but at the same time, it became a really, really heavy reading for us at the same time. But yeah.
So I noticed that you people haven't contributed to the anthology.
I transcribed a conversation, but that's about it.
Yes, you transcribed a conversation. That's right.
Yes, but Priyanka, why didn't you write?
The nation wants to know.
The nation will just start. I think it was a conscious choice. We wanted it. We wanted to hear what others have. I mean, what other writers are. I mean, I think I was more interested in the act of listening rather than saying for this one, and I wanted to hear different perspectives. We were already a part of it in terms of picking and choosing what we want and how we want it and all of that. But I think that's where we wanted the intervention. I wanted my intervention to end there. And yeah, I think it was for me, it was just about knowing what someone else thought on a certain thing.
So on that note, I'm going to ask you to take over and maybe invite one of your contributors to read.
So let's see. Okay. Manjari, could you go?
Yeah, Manjari is right here. So please. It's a translation, isn't it?
No. This is
I'm sorry.
It's an essay.
It's an
essay. It's an essay. Sorry.
Essay on dating.
on dating apps, actually.
Yes.
So it's on page 35. I'll read the first few paragraphs. Why do people have to be this lonely? What is the point of it all? Millions of people in this world, all of them yearning, looking to others to satisfy them, yet isolating themselves. Why? Was the earth put here just to nourish human loneliness? I think of these words by Haruki Murakami often, especially when I am on dating apps, wading through a sea of men and selecting and rejecting them like a piece of furniture in a catalog. It is a dizzying experience of being on the apps that hold the promise to take you out of this lonely trail, but at the same time, it makes you feel immensely alone. We look at photos of people and read two lines about them and choose to say yes or no. Even when we say yes, we see that most of those conversations don't go beyond the first hello. When they do, they sometimes end in a meeting, maybe a few meetings, maybe sex. And if you're really lucky, they end in a relationship, however long. But other times, most of the time, they just end. You get ghosted, or you are the one who ghosts. You find someone else to distract yourself with. You end up catfished, or sometimes assaulted, or it just fizzles out, which might even be the best possible scenario given the other possibilities. Most people I meet on the apps are looking for companionship. The romantic love that gives you butterflies in the stomach isn't on anyone's mind anymore. That was for our 20s, a time of optimism and youth, when we still could believe that songs weren't lying. The times for the Beatles song to have meaning in life. When a lover sang, I wanna hold your hand, he did wanna hold your hand. The intense love is also meant intense heartache. And while I can't speak for everyone, most people I know have become more pragmatic. And I think that's the tragedy of our time. Millions of people in this world, all of them yearning, looking to others to satisfy them, yet isolating themselves. We are yearning, yet we're scared of that yearning, and so we isolate ourselves.
Sonia,
Yeah. Yeah, I liked your title a lot. Could you please read it for us?
Okay, stupid, I'm tired.
Yeah. And your headings are also pretty interesting. Yeah, this sucks, but where is my sandwich? And the one on page 43, could you please read that?
You thought you could be yourself?
No, 43, the next one, the last segment.
apps.
If you found love on the apps, please exit the conversation.
That's really sharp, actually. So, you know, this comes from a place of, I guess, personal experience as well, right?
Yeah.
As you have mentioned in your essay. So, is it, or does it also incorporate what others have told you, or does it just, come from where you are?
So I think I live in such an ecosystem where a lot of my women friends are on these apps, not just women friends. I mean, my friends have been on these apps, and so we keep having these conversations. I mean, Priyanka and Semeen are on my social media, so they know that I post these screenshots on Instagram of of the men that I encounter, the profiles that I encounter. So it's sort of become like a thriving conversation that we are having about being or about surviving these dating apps. And it is a very it's sort of a harrowing experience in some sense, because you feel a lot of fatigue talking to people and it not really going anywhere, and it's a cycle. Like, you constantly keep talking about the same things, from how are you to tell me something about yourself, and then you tell them something about yourself and you hear their stories, and then it just like sort of fizzles out. So it's everybody is very exhausted, everybody is hopeful, which is why they're on the apps, but also exhausted, so they're not really making any efforts, and I am myself included. And so these are the constant conversations that I have with my friends. some of whom have found love and others who are looking for it. And so it is my experience and it is other people's experiences as well.
And what about male loneliness? A lot of people have been speaking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does that come in as a factor at some point in these conversations that men are also lonely?
I mean, of course, but all of us are lonely. Male loneliness actually gets talked about a lot. But I think that we don't talk about female loneliness enough. Like men are lonely, yes, but I think that is also happening because women have sort of taken a lot of agency and they are uh, trying to assert their space and enter this dialogue, and that has made or that has sort of affected the whatever the life of men and has made them feel lonely. At least that's what I feel, because we are looking for emotionally available men, and I don't think that men have reached that stage where they are emotionally equipped to deal with these demands, quote unquote. And so, I mean, sure, I don't really know how to answer your question. I mean, yes, we talk about male loneliness, but I actually am not really genuinely not that interested in male loneliness.
Well, thank you very much. You are, as your essay is, very frank and acerbic. So I would like to now move across to Shampurna Chatterjee, and we would like to hear a piece from her contribution. Shampurna?
Yeah, hi, thanks. Thanks. And it's really lovely to listen to everybody speak because there's something going on here which reveals how essential this anthology is. There's something, some essential dialogue is happening between us here. So thank you very much, Priyanka and Semeen. Also, thank you both for choosing the most obscure of the four poems that I sent in. I had sent in four poems for you to choose from, and three of them were fairly narratorial and perhaps more transparent uh, than the one you chose. And that's what I'm going to read the first two sections from. It's called Only One Fact. I need to say a tiny thing before I read it. Um, I think as a writer who's been writing fiction, writing poetry, translating, been an editor, I teach, I write for young people. Um, and there is an enormous amount of richness in all these activities. But I also very recently have been working intensively in the news domain. And I think the 3 years of working as an editor, not only with culture pieces, increasingly with uh, pieces on politics, geopolitics, hardcore pieces which deal with the facts and the brutal facts of the India that we live in today. A lot of what I do to sort of repair myself on an everyday basis is think about the damage that is done to language in this domain. The damage that is done to language, the damage that happens. I don't think I have the skin to be a journalist. I do not have the there's something about being a reporter on the field. There's some sense of survival that seasoned journalists have, which I don't have. And working with very seasoned people, I realized that I need to develop perhaps a survival kit. And one of the ways in which the survival kit happened was this poem. And I had no idea when I was sorting certain things out in my head that this actually was speaking to the question of loneliness slash solitude. And it's called Only One Fact. All setups are false. True is the unsettlement. Undone by laughter, she forgets the space between self and self. False is the division. True is the voice that speaks into space. The space between laughter and tears is set up. She forgets the division. Undone by self, forgetting is false. True is the laughter that works the forgotten. The true division undoes the false. She is unsettled, and that space is all. The world is a truth composed of falsehoods. Composed is not what she feels. Feeling has no place in the making. She has to teach herself how and why. She forgets she ever knew either. The world is news in the making. She does not know what sentences the world to news. Leaving herself out is so hard to begin with. So hard, the learning of the world. And there are three more sections, and it's really I'm trying to balance this thing between receiving, reporting, being completely undone by what I see, what I must process back into language. All of those unsettlements somehow became the matter for this poem. And
Thank you.
perhaps it's something about what was the matter with me, a kind of aberration, a poet among uh, journalists and editors, a poet with an editorial side, there were all kinds of strangenesses. And I think it was about also a kind of isolation, which I hadn't even identified until Semeen and Priyanka sort of provoked me into thinking, like, does this belong here? And I think it was the last one in my submission, because I was like, no, this can't be the first poem in that set. Okay, so that's where it went. That's how it is.
So, editors, please tell us why you chose the most obscure of Sampurna's poems, as she told us.
I think no, I'll just say, I think there were these gaps and these silences that most attracted us to this poem. It's like it was holding what is left unsaid, and somewhere there are certain experiences that are very hard to articulate in straightforward narrations, and that's where when we read Sampurna's poem, especially that one, and it just struck us that this is the one that we really want out of all of them, and I think that's why we went for it.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to tell you something. It's been really Semeen and I've never, throughout the selection process, I'm not going to use the word but throughout the process, there wasn't a single time that the group the selection or I known this is. I mean, we both agree on so that I think was really amazing, and I mean, I do. This is the first time I was someone like that. And I mean, that was an
this anthology, as well as all of your contributors, are so articulate that, normally I'm always anxiously looking whether there's enough time. But I think that this is a work that should be given all the time that it asks for. So, what I want to do now is Mars has a question for the editors. So, I'm going to unleash Mars upon you, and then we will go back to the readings. And then I would like to request all of you, if possible, or at least some of you, to pick up a work of a contributor who's not here and just read it, a bit of it. Okay. So I'm just telling you in advance. So, Mars, we are putting you on screen.
no wait, Mars.
Yes.
Now that I have been unleashed, I think it's the Sampurna said how many different roles she performs. I also happen to be a professor at a university, and I write literary criticism for academic journals also. So I think I have what might be more of an academic, critical kind of query. Um, when I saw the title of the anthology as it came out, it struck me that the title had both the words solitary and loneliness in it. And I read the introduction by Priyanka and Semeen as well, which is their contribution to the anthology, I suppose. And I found it interesting that they seem to look at the two interchangeably. So I don't know how that spoke to the other contributors and how the editors thought of that. Um I don't tend to use them interchangeably.
Yeah, we're not using it interchangeably. I think the idea was to cover, again, like, since we were, uh, I mean, that covers, I, uh, we don't want.
Actually, Priyanka, your
Your
connection is a bit
voice,
unstable.
your voice is breaking, Priyanka.
Sorry.
We can't
Yeah,
hear
we
you
can't hear
well.
you because your voice is breaking. Connection is a bit unstable.
That's a train.
Train. Oh.
Let the train pass. Yeah, the trains never leave me lonely. So yeah, so I think the idea of the title was also to cover that aspect of, I mean, how there is the element of solitude, and the solitude. Then there is would also urge.
Can't hear you.
Why don't why don't we wait a bit and then
We'll just wait.
by Semeen or somebody else?
Is this some good strain passing by? It seems to be going on and on. Oh no. So Semeen, maybe you could fill in for the time being?
I think what frequently happens is that solitude is mistaken for loneliness. I mean, that was what, when Priyanka and I sat down to discuss the title. And see, for us, what this is a subjective view, that for us, solitude, say it's been alone by choice. So one can come out of it and come, go back to it. But when it's loneliness is more imposed upon you. So there, it becomes associated with exclusion, with marginalization, with also being forgotten by others. So for us, it was also necessary that we talk about these two aspects when we were selecting writings, when we were looking at them. And basically looking at who all were managing on their own and who all were being held by others. So this came out beautifully in the writings that were a part of this book. And then there were writings that also blurred that line, where what constitutes as loneliness and what is solitude. So but for us it was sort of a different experience. Sorry, Maz. I mean, for us, that's how we saw it.
Thank you. That's a great response.
Priyanka, now that the train has left.
If I may, because of the context, actually, when I read Writing from the Solitary, it made me think of those prison cells where people are kept in solitary confinement. And then considering the fact that COVID has such a big role to play, the solitary took on that meaning for me as well.
Yeah.
So over to you, Priyanka.
So yeah, I mean, everything that the two of you have said, I have nothing to add there. But yeah, I think it was. Let me read a bit from Naveena's piece, because since she's not here, because it does talk about solitude, loneliness, lonelytude, even. Where is it? I mean, it'll fit right in 83 into the conversation. So yeah, ek, the word for the cardinal number one in Homia and Bangla, the two languages I've grown up with. gives us the word, an adjective, ekaki, ergo alone, lonely, or lonesome. The English language does not presume that this ekaki person would possibly be enjoying the state of being without any palpable companionship or at least the daily humdrum. Hence the difference of semantics in that language when we consider the words loneliness vis-a-vis solitude. The idea of ekakito, the noun form, therefore, has both loneliness and solitude feed into each other to form a notion of being by oneself. Most writers and poets would agree the loneliness of writing is as much or is more overpowering than the loneliness of love, and empowering in equal measure. Especially we women write lonely and solitary and love all along. Although the emotions are mostly a marker of young love, here I'm reminded of my paternal grandmother. I've always seen her a widow and always into advanced age, dressed in a stark plain white dhoti, not a sari with border and anchal or pallu. She did chores, read, rested, cooked, and told us stories in between her puja and bath and tending the greens outside. While she mostly ate her breakfast and meals in the room itself, her face shone in the chiaroscuro of the light streaming through the window. She, a Vermeer character, albeit old and shriveled. Once I asked Grandma why she wouldn't eat with us at the table. Her seat was a wooden pigre, a flat, low stool. I believe it's pira in Assamese. She had no inclination for shahibiana or Western style habits. The breakfast bowl or plate in hand, she mostly used her hand to eat and tilt her head towards the window, looking at something unknown to me. Even as a little girl, I could tell she liked being lonely this way, the loneliness actually merging into a solitude she valued highly. What do you look at through the window, Thakuma? I once asked her. All the stories that come to my head are out there. Ram, Ravan, little fairies, and even Skondokata, the headless monster, she had replied.
Thank you. That does put things in context here. So, anything else to add to that? Anyone, Maz or anybody else?
If I might,
Yeah, sure, please.
it's very interestingly framed, this title, and it hinges on these prepositions: writing from the solitary and anthology on loneliness. So I think it's really hinged between these two things, that we are writing from the solitary, but where we are going is we are going towards an anthology on loneliness. And I find that the crafting of the title very beautifully and delicately balanced, like, it will open in both ways and it will allow us in.
I don't know if
Only
that
just
was
struck me.
intended, but it's worked out really well.
No, it only just struck me because I was looking at the title, and I don't have the book, so I had to look at my Instagram post in which I quoted it very punctiliously, the entire title, and that's when it struck me that it is not a thoughtless title. It seems very very correct in that sense.
So thank you, editors. Now we return to our contributors. I would like to invite Kalyan Ram sir to please read from his selection, which is a translation of Perun Devi's microfictions.
Thank you. First, there is a background for this selection, which is that I was approached by these editors. It's a translator kind of acts as a conduit between, the Basha milieu and the editors in some way, if they're not familiar with the source language. And I was translating, and they said that they wanted some material having to do with loneliness. And I was translating, a collection of poems by Perendevi, which will be forthcoming later this year. And I was also sort of playing around with microfiction. She's published two collections, and I asked her if she would select stories which sort of resonate with the theme of loneliness, and she selected six, and I translated all of them, and the editors chose three out of them. Yeah. So that's the background. And I would say that in all these stories, the protagonist sort of goes about, usually it's a woman, she goes about in a kind of, as if everything is natural to her, okay? And you don't really see her being uh, oppressed by loneliness as such. But it's only towards the end of the story, and it's a very short story, that the extent of her loneliness is revealed and what she's been grappling with uh, throughout the narrative, so to speak. So that's it's kind of subtle. It doesn't overtly talk about the loneliness of the protagonist. So that's I found that fascinating, really. So I'm going to read a page from the story called Honey. It's set in America, in a small town in America, and it takes place mostly in a zoo because the protagonist called Jesse is in love with a chimpanzee, and it is what goes on between them, and how the rest of the zoo administration, how they deal with it, and so on. They might, uh, you know, go beyond 1 minute, but yeah, I think I would like to finish it from where I start. Uh, okay. From then on, the curator kept a watchful eye on her activities as well as Honey's. Honey and Jessie did not stop with kissing. He observed them standing on either side of the glass, trying to fit their bodies together. Not occasionally, but every evening, but for a few hours. At first, curator felt disgust and revulsion. Then he became irritated and angry with Jessie. She might be a pretty woman, but how insane was she? This was an egregious manifestation of human civilization at its most perverse, he thought. When he brought up the relationship between Jesse and Honey to his boss, he was instructed to monitor the activities for a week and document them to gather the relevant data. Throughout the entire week spent on the task, the curator felt as if his mental health might deteriorate. If Jessie came wearing a yellow dress, Honey would come near the glass partition with a heap of yellow leaves or yellow flowers it had gathered. One day, when she had worn a green dress, it wove a garland from assorted green leaves and brought it to her. Jessie bent down on her knees on her side of the glass. Assuming a posture of embracing her, Honey stood frozen against the glass. As the curator set down what happened there, after that, in his note, his stomach turned and he felt like vomiting. After the curator submitted his notes, the zoo management decided that henceforth it would not allow Jessie inside. Over the past week, Jessie had tried pleading and threatening and exerting pressure on the authorities through her network of influential friends. Nothing worked. The management was firm in its decision not to allow her. The curator was its face. What is she to do now? Jessie could not see a way out. All she could do was to bring a can of petrol to the zoo the next day and immolate herself, she decided. She walked towards her car. Two young women got on from the car that was parked in the spot next to hers. To the woman who was wearing a blue dress, a blue bracelet, and blue nail polish on her fingernails, the other one said, "Let's see whether Honey can find a bouquet of blue flowers today." "Yes." "For a red dress, it would offer its own blood in a cup," the woman in blue replied. "So much love." Both women laughed aloud. For Jessie, the whole world had grown dark. Feeling too weak even to open the car door, she sat down on the ground. Her face turned white. After a few minutes, she said to herself, "After all, a chimpanzee." Then, standing up slowly, she said to herself again, "After all, a male." Opened the car door and got in and sat down. After shaking her head as if in denial, she whimpered. After all, it's love. Buried her face in the steering wheel and began to wail and cry.
I read that story a couple of times, just to completely imbibe the meanings that come towards the end. So
Yeah.
that was really a beautiful translation as well. Thank you, sir. So I would like to now take the readings to Mamta Kalia and Pooja. Yeah. And it would be lovely if you could do your reading, and then we could have Mamta ji, read the original as well. That would be wonderful.
I think that would be fantastic. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Priyanka and Semeen, who made my work very easy by actually choosing the two stories that they wanted me to translate. It's really very nice when, people you trust give you nice stories and very thoughtful, deep meditations on the topic. And really, you don't have to do the hard work of going looking for stories. So thank you very much for that. And thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this launch today. Mamta ji is here, and I should say this before I start reading, that when I was translating the story, I had questions about certain phrases and certain places that are mentioned in the story. And I wrote to Mamta ji and I asked her, uh, what did you mean here? Or how do I translate this? And she was very kind and she told me exactly what I should be writing here. So I'm very grateful to her for this and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. So I will read the last bit of the story. Um, at just the last paragraph. And the story, if you've read it, is the story of a man who is uh, in a situation which seems like it's sort of a lockdown, possibly because of a security threat or a war threat, and what happens to him and his life living through this phase. And the title has darkness in it, so this is sort of evocative. It makes sense to the atmosphere. It adds to the atmosphere of the story. So I'll read the last paragraph. The siren eventually died out, but left its intent and aura in its wake. Quiet city became quieter, and the sleeping colony slipped into deeper sleep. In truth, nobody was asleep. Eyes wide apart, everyone was suspended in wordless waiting. Ruchi and he were now sitting. Neither interrupted the other's stupefaction. Fear had placed its fingers on their lips. Kapoor had always been afraid of personal dangers. He had encountered the dangers to the country only in newspapers and forgotten all about them by the next morning. He had seen their miniature images sometimes in passing. He recalled that there were hutments of flood victims at the edge of Ring Road. In front of Gaylord in Connaught Place were piteous children worse off than beggars selling garlands. But he had never found himself included in their sorrows. He could see the present danger, however, on his wrinkled and bent mother and on his helpless father, on the quicksilver like molten Ruchi and on himself as clearly as an X-ray film. He discovered that this darkness had the potency to assert disapproval of their intentions, for one cannot make love in this darkness. One can merely hold one's breath, fix one's eyes and ears on a point, and wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja. Actually, the context that you have provided, it aptly pins the way that a man just goes about in the city, apparently doing work, and the interiority of his mind, it's revealed beautifully. So over to Mamta ji. If you would also read the title in Hindi, that would be wonderful. हिंदी में शीर्षक भी जरा रीड करेंगे तो अच्छा रहेगा कहानी का. ममता मैम, आपको सुनाई दे रहा है? हाँ जी.
Yes, actually this is a translation of slightly old time story that I had written in 1965.
Oh.
And it relates to the blackout days during the Indochina War that we lost. And at that time, there used to be blackouts. At that time, I was teaching in a college in Delhi University. And it relates to a moment that lovers want to make use of, because it's a time of loneliness as well as, isolation, darkness. But they find that when they are together, they are not able to make love, because love also needs, composure, and it needs a very friendly atmosphere. If the atmosphere is tense and it is corrugated, you cannot really think of making love. This is all about the story about पिछले दिनों का अंधेरा. I'm so glad it has been translated very well by Pooja Sancheti. And it also depicts Delhi at those silent moments which were there when they faced the second war of India with China, and which we lost. So those are really strange times. But at that time, we also found some good things, like the bus conductor, taking money from change without ever bothering. So many things at that time were good, because they brought out the best in the man, in human beings. But at the same time, they were no good. Those days were no good for lovers. This is actually the tone of the story.
Yes, ma'am. So, would you please read for us in Hindi if you have the original?
Oh, you want me to read it in Hindi? I'll have to find out my short story. Just a moment, huh? It's in
Sure,
the
ma'am,
first
sure.
volume.
So, meanwhile, if any of the contributors would want to come in and, yeah, Priyanka?
Yeah,
You found it, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
yeah, I'll read the first. I'll read just a little bit. I'll read a little bit, huh? Okay.
Sure, ma'am.
65, yeah. Yeah. शहर चुप था, बंद दुकानें निर्विकार हो गई थी, चौराहे अवाक खड़े थे, धीमे चलती हुई बसें नहीं थी, लगता था अंधेरे को पहिए लगा दिए गए हैं. बस के अंदर पहली बार आस पास बैठे लोग अंधेरे का फायदा नहीं उठा रहे थे. वो करोल बाग उतरा तो उससे अपनी बस्ती पहचानी नहीं गई. हमेशा चकचक करने वाली अजमल खान रोड सहमी हुई थी. बेलगा की बत्तियों ने पहली बार अपनी नीली दौड़ रोक दी थी. प्रहलाद मार्केट अटेंशन की मुद्रा में खड़ा था. कोई गुजरती मोटर क्षणांश के लिए बत्ती जलाती तो चौंधिया कर खुद बंद कर देती. बस से उतरकर लोग सीधे अपने अपने घर जा रहे थे, बिना परिचितों से हाथ मिलाए. कपूर बस में बैठे जरूर भारी महसूस कर रहा था. उसके दिमाग में कई बातें घूम रही थी. पहली कि पंजाब में ठीक अम्बाला में रह रहे उसके माँ बाप का क्या होगा. अब शाम को वो क्या किया करेगा. अंधेरे में टिकट बांटता कंडक्टर उसे सहज मानव विश्वास का प्रतीक लग रहा था. वो एक बार भी रेजगारी गिन नहीं रहा था. हो सकता है रात को उसके पास बहुत सारे खोटे सिक्के हो, पर ऐसा नहीं होगा. नगर की आज्ञाकारिता उसे चौंका गई.
Oh, it's beautiful. The narrative is beautiful, and listening to you, I was just looking at Pooja's translation, and it's come out so well. कि मानो ये हिंदी ही हो. It's done very well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I guess
It's a beautiful collection. Writing from those Eddie's story, these and Jamuna Bini's story about Nilay. They were really enjoyable, and I congratulate the translators, Priyanka Sarkar and Semeen Ali, because I've been in conversation with them, and today I'm meeting Sayukta, and it's a very nice new family coming over, and we should get together again for some more hilarious things. Solitude is okay, but let us have something about hilarious moments also, because writing is a pleasure, and it brings us very close together.
ये हमने सॉलिट्यूड में भी हिलेरियसनेस ढूंढी है, उसमें हिलेरियस ढूंढी है, ढूंढा मैं उसी I mean in that way I would ask Neetu to read her piece which will actually change the mood a bit.
Yeah.
Yes. So now it's time for Neetu Das, please.
Thank you so much. First, I want to thank the editors, Semeen and Priyanka, for inviting me to contribute to this wonderful anthology. I've been staying away from anthologies for quite some time now, for various reasons. And so it was with some trepidation that I actually sent in my contribution. In fact, I totally forgot about it. It was so kind of you to remind me and ask for my poems. I wrote this poem specifically for this anthology because I have been, for the last few years, I've been writing in a very different kind of a vein. So I had to really change my writing track in order to think about issues of loneliness. And when I thought about it, I felt that, I could talk about what I had been writing on for the last few years, which is about birds and bird watching, and to bring that version of me into a more almost, I'm afraid to use this word, kind of subjectivity, because I've been trying to train myself into a kind of strand of detachment, a different kind of detachment, as it were. So, when I finally wrote these poems, I wanted to kind of write around my travels, which are necessary if you want to see different kinds of birds. Otherwise, you get kind of trapped within the same avian. Avian diversity becomes important when you are a bird watcher. And then I kind of connected the ideas of travel and bird watching and also bird photography, because all these poems are also about photographing birds, which meant that I was trying to deal with the problems of my aging body, which meant that I couldn't really. I had to think about, how to carry my heavy equipment, my binoculars, my lenses. They're very heavy, and sometimes nowadays, I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my knees and my arms, my shoulders. So I wanted to bring that aspect of the changing body into my understanding of aging as almost a kind of solitary process. And like I said, it's something that I don't really write about in my writing. So it was a new opportunity for me to think about birding through this lens. So I'm going to read two very tiny poems from this series that I sent, which is just briefly called The Bird Watcher. And they are, again, very briefly just titled according to the place names. So they're not really titles, they're just place markers. And so the first poem is Chota, and I'm going to read that. What if I could kneel now on this unnamed mountain path, forgetting the grotto of long ago, for this is prayer, not wrath. But in this impartial, slightly skeletal morning with the monal moving ahead of me, just below, just out of sight, my body says no. With a gathered indifference of close clouds, this is a fantasy of rhododendrons dissolving, my belly growling, a fisherfolk memory reminding me of the trash of absent faces, erasing both the ruins of the sun and the grief of touch. And the second poem, Munsiari. My hands have grown loosely by my sides like unwanted branches, hauling the viewfinder, searching for the rosefinch with starlight on his wings. An old balance flashes, a saint riding a groundswell. This is me, my friend, old as sluggish sleep this fine morning, yawning and striving to shift my ears to a call, a bit of snow on my eyelash, a screech of song, and then nothing before the quick rain. Praise the balcony, the peach burn of Panchachuli, the misplaced geometry of ground frost at my feet. Thank you.
Oh, that's beautiful, Neetu. I have read, I think, your earlier collection, which had to do with birds. There was one like that, and I mean your earlier set of poems, I guess, on birds, and
Yeah.
this brings me right back there. So
Perhaps the last Crowbite, perhaps, which had more
yes,
poems on birds.
that's the one, yeah. So thank you. And now, on that note, I think I could bring around all of our contributors, and you could read works that are of others who are not here. So shall we? Who all would like to read? You can just put your hand up or say you would like to, and we'll have you over. We'll keep Semeen and Priyanka for the last. Yeah. So why don't we?
Done her bit. I mean, I've already
Yeah.
Ravina's. So I think Semeen.
Oh, Sampurna doesn't have the book with her, sadly. Okay.
Can you send her the PDF? I don't.
I think, yeah, I can. I think I have her number. 1 second. So, Neetu, why don't we go with you itself?
Yeah, I'm okay. I
Yeah,
can
we'll
read
start
from
and work our way
Bhaswati's-
back up.
I can read from Bhaswati's contribution, The Mysterious Gifts of a Fake Snake. Yeah, that's quite a fun thing. So this is the 1990 portion. It's not as if the snake is unknown to me. It's possibly been with me all along, since childhood. I've always been reticent, the toddler who closed her eyes when guests came home, an act that reassured her that others couldn't see her. The student who could win the quietest girl award in primary school, the shy preteen who retreated to the bedroom the moment her brother's friends alighted at our doorstep. One evening, my maternal grandfather, Dadu Bhai to me, picks me up from my school bus stand as he has been doing for the past 5 years. I've offloaded my school bag to him as I do every evening. Minutes after entering the house, Dadu Bhai slumps on the bed. My inner premonition rather hasn't yet learned to catch the signals of the coiled snake about to cause a hurricane with its hiss. I don't yet know what would lose Dadubai within a week. That a seemingly healthy and upright 84-year-old man could depart just like that, without any warning. A year and a half later, when Titi, my grandmother, goes to the hospital to have her already weak heart further weakened by the death of a partner of more than 6 decades, Fix My Radar continues to be just as ineffective. I don't have any inkling that my grandmother would take the exact same exit route as her husband's, from the hospital bed to the impalpable beyond. I think that would do. Thank you so much. I really like the story.
Thank you. Yeah. So now I think we'll go to Pooja.
Sure. So I thought maybe I'll read a little bit from The Rajmata of Rampur by Tarana Hussain Khan. I've read her work earlier. I really enjoy reading what she writes. It's very rooted in, in the ethos of Rampur and that region. So it's really nice to read her work. So this is the opening of the story, The Rajmata of Rampur. वो आदमी को पहचानती थी. She understood people. Was the puzzling statement with which Nani Amma, our grandmother, began the story of the last queen of Rampur, princely state. We young girls refrained from asking for explanations, anticipating Nani Amma's usual rant that we couldn't understand simple Urdu. Later, we understood that by Admi, she meant both men and women, and understanding people was an important facet of the queen's personality. It earned her the epithet of Rajmata, the royal mother. My mother often said that Rafat Begum's stepping out of the parda and sending her daughters to boarding schools and universities outside Rampur transformed a generation of women. My grandfather and other families of Rampur also educated their daughters, and my mother became the second female doctor of Rampur. However, Nani Amma's admiration was for the way Her Highness Rafat Zamani Begum, she always took care to refer to the Queen with her full title, navigated the challenges of royal life, dealing with grief, loss, and loneliness with resilience. Looking back, I believe my mother, the quintessential feisty Rampuri lady, reflected the spirit and attitude of the iconic Rajmata, especially after she became a widow. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we move over to Shampurna.
Yeah, thanks. So I'll read Mani Rao, and she has 2 poems in the anthology. I'll read the one called The Large House. In such a large house, don't you feel lonely? Will a small house be better? Maybe not. But you can't say there's no room, or you would surely have friends over. When you're on the phone, the other side will not know from the hollow echo that you are alone. Walls that are closer hold sound better. There's always furniture. It's much easier to fill a small house with furniture. Who shall I call to say I'm in a small house? Or I would have surely invited them over. Family? They know why I moved. Besides, family is exactly a large house. Each person a big room, each unique room incompatible with each other. Can one room visit another? Well, then think. Who else has a big house who can invite you? Surely they must be lonely.
Thank you. Mamta ma'am, would you like to read something? Okay, I'm sorry, she's not here. So I'll move over to Kalyan Ram, sir. A brief selection, please. Is there? Mamta ma'am, if you would like to read, we will put you on after Kalyan, sir. So would you need more time?
Yeah, I would need more time. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so Manjari, why don't we have you read, please? A brief piece.
Yeah, sure. So I'm reading Manik Sharma's City of Epilogues, page 53. A passage to Delhi. Scraps of the Indian summer. My first in a new city as I plant my feet, figuratively at least, as a citizen of the national capital. I trawl around the dusty megapolis, pruning its harsh edges as it prepares to host a global sport embarrassing as crumbling stadiums hide behind tarred tarpaulins, the grime sliding into the streets as primer of the bureaucratic bloodletting to come. I am a small town boy, someone who has skimmed the gloss of global spectacle by turning into TVs and radios all his life. And this is the big time of scale, of aspirations, of yearning to step out of the shadow of funeral histories. Conflict, partition, migration, and the stamp of penury. This wobbly, imprecise leaf is a bold new chapter. Everyone is a witness, everyone a part of it. Even the ones rolling their eyes at what they see. It's how nations simply become their people. At which point, I can't help but wonder what prevents Delhi from looking at itself from the sky. Dejected, bemused, but somewhat still hopeful of what it has slowly become.
Thank you, Manjari. Thank you. That's a beautiful description of the city. Now, Kalyan Ram, sir, are you ready?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to read from this I think it's a story. It's called Dying Alone by Sumana Roy.
Yes, briefly, sir.
We live alone, we die alone. Such a syntax of thought can come only in quotation marks. There's an invisible balm in that realization that it comes to us in quotes, that one might be alone in space but not in time, that others have felt the same, that this utterance, even when made without words, allows us to feel less alone. I say less alone, even though I know for feeling is also knowledge, that it is the nature of the word and its experience that alone exists without a comparative, that no one is more or less alone than another, that one is either alone or not. I've seen many live alone, finding company in themselves, books, God, animals, plants, water, and stone. It's only now that I see, almost suddenly, that we die alone. It's a
Thank you, sir.
powerful
Mamta ma'am, are you ready with your reading?
You're on mute.
No, I have
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Hi.
No, Mamta.
Acha, Mamta ma'am, you're
Can
on
you hear
mute.
me?
Now we can.
Do you want me to read from the same anthology, or do you want me to read a poem just to give a different flavor in English?
From the same anthology would be good, but if you want to, I'll leave it to you.
From the same anthology, I read.
Up to you, ma'am. Totally up to you.
Writing from the solitary.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have not made your choice,
Yeah,
we'll give you some time.
Yeah, the program is focused on that. Yeah, that is true. Okay. I read out a portion. Just a few lines I'll read. We were talking about the darkness that prevailed in the previous days. He had pleaded with Ruchi to come over today and convinced Mummy that he would drop her back before dark. As darkness fell, they realized they had been waiting together for it to grow dark. Mere decency had obliged them to keep the lights on till today. The darkness of the blackout was dense. The intermittent whistles of the home guard were ringing on like reminders. Ruchi's body was warm. He always held her as if she were a molten substance. Her body would begin to melt very rapidly. She called Kapoor Jewel and did not mind much of what he said. Her face always appeared freshly washed, and when he looked at her, he felt the same way as one feels while looking at heaps of fresh vegetables early in the morning. Initially, this would startle and confuse him. Then he realized that the rawness of her face and the deeper freshness in her eyes depended on her bindi. Ruchi did not look the same way every time. Her eyes had immense potential for expression. Sometimes, after she had left, Kapoor would feel that he had not been able to see Ruchi at all, just her sparkling, deep, closing, elusive eyes. She left behind many images of eyes. She spoke little about him and spent most of the time talking about her life. But he found this more convenient. He evaded himself to a great degree and delayed any introspection on a daily basis.
Thank you,
This
ma'am.
is the character.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. And now, Annie, we could have your reading, please.
Yeah.
Please go
I'll
ahead.
read from Anukriti's story. Anukriti Upadhyay has written the story. I'm not very sure how to pronounce it actually. Ueno or Ueno Park. I'm on page 115 right now. Towards the end of the page. She strolled slowly down the path. It was warm in the sun, and she slipped her jacket off. Her head ached from the heat and from the hum of the crowd. You should have thought about bringing a snack, an inari or a couple of rice balls, a bottle or two of sencha. Now eat and drink your poetic nonsense. Woman, you'll see it tastes of regret. She looked around for a place to sit. Every bit of ground, every stone bench and grassy patch was occupied by the viewing parties. A large rectangular platform studded with a round iron lid stood in the part shade of a tree, not a cherry, a Japanese maple with green stars for leaves. A man, 40 or 50, hair flecked with grey, eyes swollen, shirt baggy, occupied one corner. A plastic bag, the kind cashiers at convenience stores bagged the purchases in, sat beside him, alongside a few sweating bottles of beer. Sweat dripping down his face, he dipped his hand inside the bag and drew out a bento box. He cracked the lid slightly and squinted intently at its contents. Then, with a sudden motion, he snapped the lid shut and picked up a beer bottle. He wedged its cap firmly under the edge of the iron lid and pulled. It sprang and took flight. The liquid foamed forth. With none too clean fingers, he lifted the bottle to his mouth, his eyes sliding from side to side. She watched the cap spin roll come to rest by her feet, shoulders tight, arms crossed, legs gathered. She sat down at the farthest corner of the platform. She could hear the hollow sound made by the water flowing in the storm drain underneath. I'll stop here.
Oh, thank you. And now we move to Mars.
Hi. And actually, when I was thinking about what to read, I'd originally thought I'd read either the Hikikomori section from Bhashwati or Shumana, a section from Shumana's, because I mean, Bhashwati really appealed to me, and Shumana's is written from similar circumstances to mine. I teach at a university which is close to hers, and I taught at her university as well earlier. But I think both of them have been read. So perhaps I'll read a poem of Akhil's then. I don't think that has been read out yet, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's fine.
Maybe the second one, which is shorter then. I don't know how to pronounce this actually. Are these Lonat caves? Does anyone know for sure? Lonat?
Probably.
At the Lonat caves. The rock is cut into a jataka. Time has taken off the eyes and mouths of the sculptures, so their faces, softened with 1,500 years of rain, no longer show a person as distinct from another. Given enough time, they become each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mars. And now we move to the one editor. So before that, actually, Semeen, if I may, we have a thing going on at Samyukta Poetry where we don't say goodbye and see you again and all of that. We just end the meeting on a note where someone has just finished their reading. So just to, put everything together, I just want to say that this has been a lovely evening, spent in the company of people who have written extensively on a topic like, loneliness, and a group of people who have anthologized it. And the sense of collegiality, the sense of community that is there amongst your people, it's very heartening. So, I'm actually reluctant to see this evening come to an end, but, like all evenings, it has to. So, thank you all for drawing from so many shades of loneliness for drawing from so many shades of solitude and the solitary. Thank you for doing all of that and for presenting these individuals, who are, well, leading their lives in silence in the midst of so much of cacophony. So it's a beautiful work, and because I just wanted to pick out one thing that Ruth Vanita has talked about. In that मैं अकेला हूँ, मैं अकेला. I'm sorry. Are you planning to read that, Semeen?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one.
So I'm very, very happy that you have picked that. So when you're doing that, just please do also read the last paragraph of what Ruth Vanita has said about the translation. Yeah, about the book.
Okay.
That would be
Okay.
beautiful. So that would be the
Okay.
note on which we end. So thank you very much for this beautiful book. It was a thoroughly enjoyable read, though a bit sad, like how you mentioned, it takes you a toll. So, okay, so over to Semeen.
Yeah. So I'm going to read the original and then the translation. So the title is मैं अकेला by सूर्यकांत त्रिपाठी निराला. मैं अकेला देखता हूँ आ रही मेरे दिवस की संध्या बेला, पके आधे बाल मेरे, हुए निष्प्रभ गाल मेरे, चाल मेरी मंद होती आ रही, हट रहा मेला. जानता हूँ नदी झरने जो मुझे थे पार करने, कर चुका हूँ. हंस रहा ये देख कोई नहीं भेला. So the translation is, I alone see approaching the evening of my day. Half my hair's turned grey. My skin has lost its glow. I walk slow, more slow. The fair's moving away. I know I've crossed the rivers and streams I had to cross. Laughing, I see, no boat remains. So the last paragraph that you asked me to read from the translator's note is, Suryakant Tripathi Nirala, who in my view is the greatest Hindi poet of the 20th century, loved his wife deeply, but she died very young, and he chose not to remarry. Later, his beloved daughter too died. Though he had close friends such as Mahadevi Varma, herself single, and Sumitra Nandan Pant, also widowed young, he was alone for much of his life. Main Akela is the best poem on aloneness that I have read in any language, and it is about the self's aloneness on its journey. Thank you.